So, namaskar friends and welcome once again. In this particular lecture, we are going to talk about further about dharma. We have talked about this earlier as well. Then again, we need more discussion on this. How dharma provides an ethical framework in our Indian knowledge tradition. So, a powerful illustration of dharma as context sensitive and non-formulaic appears in Ramayana through the decision of Vibhishana, the brother of Ravan. So, Vibhishana faces a profound ethical dilemma. On the one hand, he has his brother, on the other hand, he has Lord Rama. His brother is on the other side of ethics, while Rama is on the ethical side. So, he has this dilemma whether he should go with family loyalty and political allegiance or he should side with the dharma. Okay. So, he knows that his brother by abducting Sita has not done the right ethical thing. So, he knows that this is completely adharmic and he repeatedly advises his brother Ravan to return Sita and avoid war, but his counsel is rejected. He tries to avoid this situation to the best of his ability. Teje dekam kulasyarthe gramasyarthe kulam tejet gramam janpadasyarthe atmarthe prithvi tejet. He said one should abandon one person for the sake of the family for the village for the country, and even the world for the sake of the self, that is higher good. So, what has to be done in such ethical dilemma? What is the right thing to do? What Vibhishana does, is it ethical, it is moral, is it dharmic, or as per dharma, or is the wrong thing to do? One thing is clear, that dharma is not about following fixed duties. Well, there is another case. We know that Bhishma follows his Raj Dharma. He has taken a vow that he will remain loyal to the throne of Hastinapur, and as a result, even if he knows that Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, they are treading the path of adharma, he does not leave them and join Pandavas who are fighting for the restoration of dharma. So, dharma in the sense is not following one's fixed duties, it is about choosing rightly when duties conflict, and that is why Vibhishana at that critical moment when he has to choose between Ravan and Ram, Ravan being his brother, could have been his natural choice, but since he is following the path of adharma, he chooses otherwise. So, dharma is closely linked with the idea of karma, where actions are understood to generate consequences that may unfold across time, often beyond immediate perception. This creates an ethical framework in which responsibility is not confined to visible outcomes, but extends into a broader causal continuum. Yad yad bijam bapate manushya tat deva prarohati. Whatever seed a person sows, that alone grows. This perspective encourages foresight, restraint, and accountability. It resists the idea that actions are isolated or consequence free, and instead situates them within a chain of effects that may return in indirect or delayed ways. So, in the excess of your arrogance, if you perform a wrong action, someday you have to pay for it. That is what Ravan did. Ethically, this can cultivate seriousness toward action and discourage short term opportunism. However, this framework becomes deeply problematic when interpreted uncritically. The notion that individuals reap what they sow can easily slide into a moralizing of suffering. Well, lot of people say that whatever you sow, that is what you reap, but then sometimes people taking advantage of this cause suffering to some people. Let us see, structural inequalities such as poverty, caste marginalization or lack of access may be explained away as the result of past actions, thereby shifting attention away from systemic injustice to individual blame. In such cases, karma ceases to function as an ethical principle and becomes an ideological tool that naturalizes inequality. And that is why what you sow, that is what you reap, sometimes is misleading. Does karma promote responsibility or does it obscure responsibility at the structural level? That question is to be asked. If taken rigidly, the doctrine risks legitimizing existing hierarchies of caste, creed and all, discouraging social intervention as people easily say they deserve it, fostering passivity in the face of injustice. And they make them realize that this is what they deserve and this is the fruit of their karma. If they have not done it in this birth, maybe they may have done it in their previous births, and that is why their suffering is justified. A more careful reading therefore requires distinguishing between individual ethical responsibility and collective and systemic conditions. So, dharma in this sense cannot be reduced to a simplistic cause effect morality. It must remain attentive to the fact that outcomes are shaped not only by personal actions, but also by historical, social and institutional forces. So, personally you are acting, you are making efforts, but those efforts are not bearing any fruit. Why? Because you are subjected to systemic injustice or inequality. So, Indian ethical thought places strong emphasis not only on what is done, but on the intention, bhāva behind the action. People say that what is done is fine, but what are the intentions of doing that? This shifts ethics from external compliance to inner orientation, suggesting that two identical actions may differ ethically depending on the consciousness that motivates them. Bhavagrahi Janardana, the divine responds to inner intention. Now, again I see some kind of problem with this also. It captures this inward turn where sincerity, awareness and motivation become central to ethical evaluation. However, well, we need not to evaluate a person based on the outcome all the time, but also on his effort, his intentions, his sincerity and his motivation. However, this move toward intention complicates ethics in significant ways. While it depends moral reflection, it also introduces subjectivity that is difficult to assess or regulate. In modern institutional contexts, law, governance, professional ethics, judgment relies largely on observable actions and outcomes, not inner states. Intention cannot be easily measured, verified or standardized, and that is why there are problems in this particular notion of intention as well. More critically, the emphasis on intention can be misused as a shield. We many a time find that people do not do something or it ends up having other ramifications, and then later on they say that their intention was something different. So, they use it as a shield. Actions with harmful consequences may be justified through claims of good intention. So, somebody might shoot somebody else and might say that he did not intend to do that, rather he was firing the shot in the air and it happened. So, it allows individuals to evade responsibility. In such cases, intention becomes a rhetorical defense rather than an ethical ground, and that is why it leads us to the question, can intention absolve consequences? If you simply say that my intention was good, but then the bad thing happened, does that absolve you from your responsibility? Indian thought does not fully ignore this tension. While bhāva is important, it does not eliminate the ethical weight of action and its effects. In the earlier lecture, we talked about Dashrath and his action. So, Dashrath did not intend to hurt Shravan Kumar, rather he fired his shot believing that some animal has come to drink water. Obviously, his intention was not to hurt Shravan Kumar, but does that mean his killing of Shravan Kumar, the only hope for his helpless parents, has no meaning and he should be given a clean sheet? No, obviously no. So, a purely intention based ethics risks moral relativism, lack of accountability, over privileging subjective self perception. So, at the same time, a purely action based ethics risks ignoring sincerity, reducing morality to compliance, overlooking the inner cultivation necessary for ethical life. Thus, Dharma here demands a difficult balance. There must be a balance between the action and the intention. So, action must be ethically sound and intention must be critically examined, not assumed to be pure. So, this is obviously a very difficult thing to do where our action aligns with our intention. The idea of dharma as truth becomes deeply complex in the Aśvatthāmā Hatha episode, which we earlier talked about. This episode appears in Mahabharata. So, during the Kurukshetra war, Drona proves nearly invincible. All of us know he has been the guru of all the Kauravas and Pandavas. So, it is suggested that he will abandon the battlefield only if he comes to know that his son Aśvatthāmā has been killed. To bring this about, Bhim kills an elephant named Aśvatthāmā and announces that Aśvatthāmā is dead. When Drona seeks confirmation from Yudhishthir, renowned for his commitment to truth, Yudhishthir replies, Aśvatthāmā hatah, naro va kunjaro va. Aśvatthāmā is dead, whether man or elephant. In the tumult of the war, Dronacharya does not hear man or elephant, he simply hears Aśvatthāmā is dead. The latter part is spoken in a way that Drona does not hear it clearly, leading him to believe that his son has been killed, and in despair he lays down his weapons and is subsequently defeated. This episode unsettles any simple understanding of truth within Dharma. Yudhishthir does not technically lie, his statement is factually correct, yet it is deliberately structured to mislead. This raises a crucial ethical question. Is truth merely about factual correctness, or does it also include intention and effect? In this case, truth is used strategically, revealing that ethical speech cannot be reduced to literal accuracy alone. So, the intentions also matter. The episode exposes the tension between the form and spirit of truth. While the form is preserved, the spirit is compromised. Truth becomes instrumental, used as a means to achieve a particular outcome. In this sense, all of us know that this truth is presented strategically so that Drona may be convinced to believe that his son has been killed and can put down his weapons, and as a result the Pandavas can defeat the Kauravas. This suggests that Dharma does not operate within rigid binaries of truth and falsehood, rather it exists within a field of ethical ambiguity, where even truthful speech can produce deception, as it happens in this case. It also indicates that adherence to truth can be preserved by circumstances, especially in contexts of conflict where outcomes are prioritized. So, what is dharma is not always truth, because dharma always talks about contextual truth. In contemporary context, this resonates with practices such as selective disclosure, strategic communication, and technically accurate but misleading statements in public life. And we have seen that this happens in almost all walks of life. The narrative also suggests that such ethical compromises are not truthfulness or not without consequence. Yudhishthir often associates, Yudhishthir is often associated with unwavering truthfulness, is shown to bear the moral weight of this act. This implies that even when deviation from truth is justified, it carries an ethical cost, making a shift in one's moral standing. Yudhishthir has always spoken the truth, but in this episode he is forced to present the truth in a deceptive way, and that certainly has ethical weight on him. Thus, truth is not a simple or absolute category, it must be understood in relation to intention, context and consequence. So, this is not enough to speak the truth, but also the intention and consequence of that truth are equally important. Ethical life in Indian thought is often framed through yukti, that is measuredness, proportion and balance. We always call for moderation or balance. Yukta har viharasya yukt chestasya karmasu, that means for one who is moderate in food, activity and action. At one level, this formulation offers a powerful critique of excess. It resists extremes, overwork, indulgence, ascetic denial, and proposes a sustainable mode of living where clarity and steadiness become possible. Moderation in this sense is not weakness but regulation, a way of preventing both impulsive excess and self-destructive discipline. So, we need to learn where to act and how to act. We need to know where the boundary of self-control collapses and action begins. However, this ideal becomes ethically problematic when translated into contemporary context without scrutiny. The language of balance is often deployed to avoid difficult choices, neutralize moral conflict, maintain personal or institutional comfort. In such cases, moderation shifts from being an ethical discipline to a strategy of disengagement. So, niyatam kuru karma tvam karma jayo hai karmana, perform the action that is to be done. Action is superior to inaction. Now, what does that mean? It appears as a direct challenge to paralysis. It resists the tendency to withdraw in the face of uncertainty, doubt or fear of failure. In contemporary context, career decisions, public engagement, institutional responsibility, individuals often defer action in the name of caution, waiting for perfect clarity that rarely arrives. Dharma in this sense affirms that ethical life requires participation, not avoidance. That means maintaining balance does not mean overlooking systemic injustice or not performing an action. In modern environments, there is already an overproduction of action, constant productivity, rapid decision making and pressure to respond immediately. In such contexts, the call to act can easily reinforce impulsive decisions, performative activism, acting for visibility rather than substance, unreflective compliance with institutional demands. So, the problem today is not always inaction, but often misdirected or unexamined action. So, what our Indian framework suggests is that it says that you do not indulge in inaction, but the action should be well thought out rather than being impulsive and always guided by immediate gratification. The story of Ekalavya and ethical morality is very important here. All of us are aware of the story of Ekalavya in Mahabharata. It offers a powerful and unsettling reflection on Dharma as ethical morality, particularly when examined beyond its conventional reading as a tale of devotion. Denied formal training by Drona due to his social location, Ekalavya turns to self-learning with remarkable dedication, fashioning an image of Drona as his symbolic guru and mastering archery through sheer discipline. His commitment appears to embody the highest values of humility, perseverance and reverence for knowledge. However, the ethical complexity of the episode emerges when Drona, upon discovering Ekalavya's extraordinary archery skill, surpassing even his best disciple Arjuna, demands Guru Dakshina in the form of Ekalavya's right thumb. Without hesitation, Ekalavya complies, effectively crippling his own ability as an archer. From a critical perspective, it raises a profound ethical question. Is obedience inherently dharmic even when the demand itself is unjust? And so, this is very important even in the modern parlance. There are situations, friends, where obedience to your superior leads to something that is unjust. What do you do? Should you follow that blindly or should you question that? Drona's request is not grounded in fairness or pedagogy. It is driven by the desire to preserve Arjuna's supremacy. In this sense, the demand reflects not dharma, but structural exclusion and partiality. Ekalavya's response, though virtuous in intention, results in the reinforcement of this unjust structure. His sacrifice does not challenge inequality, it sustains it. This reveals a troubling dimension of dharma. Virtue, when unaccompanied by critical awareness, can become complicit in injustice. So, many a time, friends, being good and loyal to the system and being a yes man to your superior is not good. You must critically question, you must critically judge and find out whether a particular action is ethical or not. The demands made by your superiors are ethical or not, and then only you take your decision. So, Ekalavya's ethical position is therefore not a simple absence of dharma, but a case of misdirected dharma. This invites deeper reflection on the limits of virtues such as discipline and submission. At what point does humility turn into self erasure? Your humility is very fine, but if you do not learn to question injustice meted out to you, probably you will be erased. When does adherence to duty become internalized acceptance of inequality? Now, this question is very pertinent to ask. Ethical morality therefore cannot rest solely on intention or personal virtue, it must also account for justice, agency and structural context. So, friends, not all virtual actions are ethically justifiable, because we also look at their outcomes and the context. So, this is all, friends. I hope we have learnt a lot in this class and we continue learning in the future classes as well. Do join me for the next class. Thank you very much.